Hello and welcome to This Date in History, aka T.D.H. This show is all about the events that occurred today in years past, both recognized by actual historians, but mainly things I personally find intriguing enough for me to bring to you. The source of this information comes from the smart device application Today in History on this day. For links to the app, music, and anything else potentially interesting, check the underbar. Anyway, on with the show! Today is Wednesday, aka Wednesday, April 25th, 2018. In 404 BC, Admiral Lysander and King Pausanias of Sparta blockaded Athens and brought the Peloponnesian War to a successful conclusion. In 775, the Battle of Bagravan put an end to an Armenian rebellion against the Abbasid Caliphate. Muslim control over Transcaucasia was solidified and its Islamization began, causing several major Armenian Narkharm families to lose power, thus causing said people to flee to the Byzantine Empire. In 1134, the name Zagreb was mentioned for the first time in the Felician Charter, relating to the establishment of the Zagreb Bishopric around 1094. In 1607, during the 80 Years' War, the Dutch fleet destroyed the anchored Spanish fleet at Gibraltar. In 1644, the Chongzhen Emperor, the last emperor of the Ming Dynasty in China, committed suicide during a peasant rebellion led by Li Zixing. In 1792, highwayman Nicholas J. Pelletier became the first person executed via guillotine. In 1792, La Marseillaise was composed by Claude Joseph Roget de Lisle. This song would later become the French national anthem. In 1846, the Thornton Affair occurred, opening a conflict within the disputed border of Texas, which eventually started the Mexican-United States War. In 1859, British and French engineers broke ground for the Suez Canal. In 1898, the Spanish-United States War started when the U.S. declared war on Spain. In 1901, New York became the first U.S. state to require automobile license plates. In 1915, during World War I, the Battle of Gallipoli began when British, French, Indian, Newfoundland, Australian, and New Zealand troops invaded the Turkish portion of the Gallipoli Peninsula, specifically at Anzac Cove and Cape Helles. In 1916, Anzac Day was commemorated for the first time on the first anniversary of the landing at Anzac Cove. In 1938, the U.S. Supreme Court delivered its opinion in Erie Railroad Company v. Tompkins and overturned a century of federal common law. In 1944, the United Negro College Fund was incorporated, yet one more form of segregation. In 1945, during World War II, Elbe Day occurred when United States and Soviet troops met in Torgau along the river Elbe, cutting the Wehrmacht of Nazi Germany in two. Also in 1945 and also during World War II, the Nazi occupation army surrendered and left northern Italy after a general partisan insurrection by the Italian resistance movement. The puppet fascist regime dissolved and Benito Mussolini was captured after trying to escape. This day, known today as Liberation Day in Italy, was then set as a public holiday to celebrate the liberation of Italy. Also in 1945 and also during World War II, the last German troops retreated from Finland's soil in Lapland, ending the Lapland War. Military acts of the Second World War ceased in Finland. Also in 1945, but not during World War II, the founding negotiations for the United Nations began in San Francisco. Wow, today in 1945 was busy. In 1953, Francis Crick and James Watson published Molecular Structure of Nucleic Acids, a structure for deoxyribose nucleic acid, describing the double helix structure of DNA. In 1954, the first practical solar cell was publicly demonstrated by Bell Telephone Laboratories. In 1959, the St. Lawrence Seaway, linking the North American Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean, officially opened to shipping. In 1960, the United States Navy submarine USS Triton completed the first submerged circumnavigation of the globe. In 1975, as North Vietnamese forces closed in on the South Vietnamese capital of Saigon, the Australia embassy was closed and evacuated. Nearly 10 years to the day since the first Australian troop commitment to South Vietnam. U.S. schoolgirl Samantha Smith was invited to visit the Soviet Union by its leader Yuri Andropov after he had read her letter in which she expressed fears about nuclear war. Also in 1983, Pioneer 10 traveled beyond Pluto's orbit. In 1990, Violeto Chamorro became the first female president of Nicaragua. In 2005, the final piece of the obelisk of Axum was returned to Ethiopia after having been stolen by the invading Italian army of 1937. Also in 2005, Bulgaria and Romania signed accession treaties to join the European Union. In 2007, Boris Yeltsin's funeral occurred. This was the first to be sanctioned by the Russian Orthodox Church for a head of state since the funeral of Emperor Alexander III in 1894. And in 2015, nearly 9,100 people lost their lives, just up and lost them, after a massive 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck Nepal. Births: Al Pacino, 1940, John Henson, 1965. And that concludes the show today. Once again, check the underbar for any links you may be interested in for your dose of past events daily. I am Aoxander, and you are you. Toodles!